Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 19th episode of the Stack2E podcast. In this episode, we have with us Srikanth, who's a principal consultant at ThoughtWorks. And today, we are going to be having a discussion around pair programming and generally around what is pair programming, where it is useful, and especially, I think, most more relevant topic for current situation is how is pair programming relevant or is it not relevant during remote working when most of us are working from home these days, right? So, hey, Srikanth, thanks a lot for taking the time and coming on the podcast.
It's my pleasure, Manoj. Thanks you.
Hey,
Thank you for
uh,
inviting me.
sure, no problem. Thanks to you as well. And can we begin by talking about the work that you have been doing? Can you give a quick introduction about yourself?
Okay, so this is Srikanth. I've started as a software developer. I've done multiple roles like a tech lead and joined startups, co-founded one of the startups, then from program management and also technology, executing largest programs. So this is my background, and I tend to think tech for me is the secondary, and first is the problem, and then how it evolves and how can we solve the customer issues and how can we create uh, solutions for the larger markets and growth. Yeah.
So I think a lot of us do know about pair programming. So, but let's just make sure everyone is on the same page.
Yeah.
And I don't think pair programming is something that people usually define what it is. But what would your definition of pair programming be?
So for me, the pair programming is not simply about pairing, right? Like two people working together on a single laptop. For me, this comes from the fact that like, okay, what is the intent? The core intent of pairing is like similar to how we develop like continuous integration, right? The idea is like
Mm.
how we can make whatever we work instantaneous and take it to the customer hands from idea to actual execution. How can you reduce that gap? The in the way of refining those things, pairing is one aspect. The reason of core like the pairing is to essentially bring that intent of continuous validation, continuous verification, and continuous delivery into the forefront. So for me, the first thing about pairing is the intent is essentially to also not just writing code or writing tests. It's also about like conversing about the ideas continuously and finding among the options what are the options available and making these like small subtle changes so that you can arrive at your destination at the best possible way. If you do it post facto, it might lead to wastage, like code reviews and other things, which have certain delay, and probably that would not give the complete picture, or it just kind of reactive, not that proactive. So pairing will eliminate the need for reviews post
Okay,
facto.
cool. So as someone who has also done pair programming and also someone who has not done pair programming
Yeah.
in more recent times, right? So I think a big question is generally I develop in my own speed. I have my own way of thinking about it.
Yeah.
And so if I'm pairing with someone, I'm intentionally being forced to either slow down or go faster, right? That's one of the biggest concerns that people have. Maybe people who have tried pair programming for a short time and then coming to that conclusion. So what would your response be to something like that? So is if there is a impedance mismatch between developers, and a lot of us are, and we also realize that coding is mostly about thinking, the thought process, and then
Yeah.
actual coding time might be just a short amount of time, right? So what would your response to be to some concerns like that?
So, as I firstly mentioning that, like it should start with the intent, right?
Mm,
So, if you are forced to do code pair programming or any other practices for the sake of doing, it doesn't achieve the perceived outcomes.
mm,
The intent of pair programming, it is essentially, it is just a tool. Like you need to utilize that tool in the right circumstance and right moments and for the right reasons, of course.
mm,
Uh, so example, in pair programming, the idea is like if you are developing as a whole, as a team, and trying to achieve certain goals or delivering of certain features, what pair programming as a tool brings to the table compared to individual coding, there are like situations which are ideal for individual coding, but I would say where really pair programming shines, according to my experience and my perception, is if you are solving a project problem or solution, like a user facing, we don't discuss too much in detail how to do that, right? Mostly we tend to delve as a team or a product or developers is like, okay, why is it required? What is it required? And a very superficial level, like how need to be done. Uh, if we are trying to optimize locally, like example, as an individual, yes, of course, there is a lot of friction involved when you work with two people because, as you say, impedance mismatch and how do you bring those two different ways of thinking or practices and comforts to one table and make them work, right? But if you think a little more holistically or broadly, uh, there are certain advantages. Of course, these are like drawbacks saying, okay, if I work fast, it's like saying, right? Like if you want to walk fast, walk alone. If you want to walk far, walk with a group, right? So similarly, I see that analogy in pair programming in a team context. If you are developing as an individual on a feature, not in a team context, but individually as a project or as your pet project or individual, yes, of course, you tend to develop because all your thought processes in your mind and you tend to develop and deliver. But in a group context, there are certain other things which people don't generally consider when quote unquote developing or programming. People tend to perceive like, okay, this time spent only in coding is productive and everything else is not so productive. But if you see the overall picture of a software delivery, what happens is like, how do you optimize the entire value chain? And pair programming is one part of the value chain optimization. We can talk about other parts, but when we focus on pair programming, the focus is like, okay, bringing two perspective into the picture will help in not just like going blindly what you believe in, but essentially having a ability to have continuous conversations. And as you rightly said, like most of the time is about thinking, not doing. So pair programming will just enhance it when you have two people with similar context on a project. Then it helps you to bounce ideas, create like what will be the better options, discuss trade-offs, and actually code. That's one part. And second part is essentially when I was talking about review, right? How can you codify that review is through writing tests. Like one person can write tests. We have other tools like test-driven development, which we can speak separately. But one person is writing tests of his intent, and other person is trying to fulfill that intent of what the system is trying to do. And if there is any gaps, it will be reflected in the code. If it is not done as pairing, maybe there are so many assumptions that people take saying that, okay, people are aligned, but essentially not. So that misalignment is reduced as a team when you do introduce this tool called pairing. And also second alternative is like, of course, if we do post facto as code reviews. So I've seen certain, I mean, I've seen projects which also does follow code review where individually people develop and somebody who is like more experienced or like a peer reviews the code after it gets pushed or like before a merge request is done or pull request is submitted, right? At that time, because the solution is already committed, most of the times the reviews will be slightly superficial in the sense if there are obvious mistakes or like performance challenges or certain coding practices are not followed or obvious bugs, right? But I think people will resist even challenging the fundamental solution because you now have a complete solution. And if you want to suggest, oh, this is not correct, there can be other way which is much more simpler. Unless it is like extreme cases, people will think if it works, it is okay, right? So because already the effort is already spent. Now the trade-off is between effort already spent versus completely creating a new solution. Sometimes the trade-off is not worth it, so you'll leave. Now you are left with code or solutions which are slightly suboptimal. But if you can give that feedback before even you write the code, as and when you are developing the code, it becomes much more optimal along the way. So that is a second advantage which I can see. And there are like other advantages of retaining focus and ability to work as a pair also ensures that the focus, we don't distract or getting diverted and we can solve on the problem.
Yeah, I think that was pretty detailed. So we have said what is the context of pair programming, what are the advantages of it in some, at least some form at least, right? So if some team or some company wants to begin pair programming work not done before, right? What would you say are the core practices that they have to follow beyond just putting two developers to work together on the same laptop? Beyond that, what are the main
Yeah.
practices that they have to follow so that they are doing pair programming in an ideal way? Or as an extension, what could be the anti-patterns that if you're following, you're not really doing
Mm.
pair programming, right? Beyond just two people sharing the same laptop or keyboard and so on.
Yeah. So again, coming back to the intent, right? If the goal is to reduce the overall time of delivering features continuously to the end user, that if that is the intent of the organization, of how do you ensure that, and the reason of delivering faster is not delivering more, but getting more opportunities to learn from those feedback cycles. Like if you deliver more to the customers, you can actually observe and make these smaller corrections instead of doing a big bang and then realizing that whatever assumptions you have made is not true in the real market. The idea is like, okay, you need to deliver that into the real market to essentially prove that whatever you assumed is true. Now, if that is the core flex, it's all working backwards from there. Now, in order to enable that, how do you achieve that goal? And that should be the organizational thought process. If they're just looking at some other organization which is doing pair programming or whatever practices, agile practices, and getting successful, if you just mimic their processes, I wouldn't think that will lead to any successful outcomes. You should actually observe the intent, and if your intent is similar and trying to mimic, then it kind of you can learn from each other. So here the goal should be like, okay, if that is the goal of continuous learning from the market, how do you ensure that your quality doesn't suffer? How do you ensure that you are providing production level quality at more frequent intervals rather than just pushing one big bang? So if you keep working backwards from there, all these, I would say like jigsaw pieces fit into the puzzle. Okay, to ensure that you continuously learn, you need to continuously deliver. In order to continuously deliver at a production quality, you need to ensure that tests and everything are continuously written, right? And it's continuously tested for the delivery to happen. If you want to continuously test, if you do it manually, it is kind of, it doesn't make sense because manual effort is finite. But if you want to increase that, features keep on increasing. So if you do it manually, either you need to take more time because like logically the feature number of features increases, the more it times for human to test all the features. So people take certain shortcuts. If you do manually, they do something called as impact testing, impact analysis, just to, I would say those are shortcuts because now they're taking certain amount of risk, saying, okay, this would have not been impacted because no code would have been written at those modules. But all these are assumptions, right? But if you want to ensure that it's properly done, then you need to write some kind of automation and tests. And in order to write those automation and tests so that you don't regress, at least the features which are working continue to work when you continually deliver, then how do you do that? If you do like individually where someone creates a feature and then you write tests post facto, then it's about like, okay, how do you optimize this entire value chain? And that's where you're trying to reduce the time and delay and wastage. And if that is the intent, then you can introduce these features. You can try out, you need not do big bang again. You can try out for certain, if you're introducing into a team, maybe first the team should feel comfortable. So culture acts a major enabler in ensuring that pairing or any agile practices work. So need to introduce, observe, and see where the deficiencies are.
Cool. Yeah, so coming to some of the practical implementation that people do with pair programming, right? So one of the things that I'm pretty interested in knowing is what is generally working out like 8 hours completely, like most of the time is that spent with pairing, or is it generally like start the day with pairing and then end the day with pairing and then in between split off and do so what are some of these patterns that people are doing, and also beyond other things like other practical things like how is pair rotation happening? Like for example, if a couple of folks are starting to work on a feature and then it's continuously rotated and someone else is constantly doing something, is there now not one single person who's owning the feature end to end, like ensuring that if there is some issue happening, who should, say, a product owner or a stakeholder contact in the team to make sure there is a quick fix to it? So what are some of the practical difficulties in actually implementing it, and what do you think has been working out in the long term?
So I want to acknowledge, I mean, the teams or like the organization should acknowledge that whoever is doing are humans, right? Still, like what the practices and the delivery we are rotate, it should be cognizant of the fact that we are dealing with humans here, not machines. So humans have certain, like you need to provide that emotional needs and support, and also need to be accustomed to the a fact that if you work for 8 hours, you can't get that peak performance for 8 hours continuously. So how do you optimize playing with the realities of human nature and psychology, and yet optimizing the outcome is trying to identify something called as like, as you rightly said, like when you develop a feature or a functionality or a product, right? Maybe not everything is known already. So you do certain bit of like analysis, certain bit of research, certain bit of development, review, and delivery. Now, how you can split is like, again, being flexible with your pair and trying to identify, okay, what would be the core pairing time that if it is new to people, maybe we can gradually increase, like maybe we can start with 1 or 2 hours and then slowly increase the number of core pairing hours, depending on how the teams cope up with. Second thing is like identifying tasks, or like even among the features, right? Identifying tasks that can be done individually versus need to be done together. Like example, something like, okay, you need to do certain research. Like people might encounter bottlenecks and neither of them might have the solution. So one way is like, okay, split and do the research and maybe spend a time boxed activity individually, find what options work, what doesn't, and then again pair together to deliver, discuss, deliver, and create that. So that will give certain time for individuals to their own pace and own way of thinking and working. And when they come together, they would have already got a sense of like, okay, what they want, what options do they have, and how do they want to develop, and they can actually discuss and actually drive coding. Now, what anti-pattern I have seen is like people generally like something which is new, if it is being introduced. When I said I was hinting around culture, because if you are in a hierarchical organization, and if you start off pairing with a completely superior who is in a reporting line with a completely newbie or a subordinate, most of the times I've seen like it has been hijacked by one person. Like even if you are pairing, the other person just becomes passive. So whatever solution, he will neither challenge because of the perception that the other person knows more than himself, or if there are 2 or 3 alternatives, he'll just let the other person drive. Even writing tests or writing the code, only one person, it's called like keyboard hogging, right? It's quite important that you tend to create that safe space for the individuals and teams to come together as not bringing their hierarchy or authority, but more like two people getting together to solve a problem. And if that culture and openness has been adopted, I've seen the pairing is successful. If not, it just becomes one more practice and nothing, it's just wasting time, because now instead of the productivity of two people, one becomes passive. So you are just getting 50% of the value, not getting the benefits of pairing.
Yeah, interesting point around that one person being more senior and other person being new. I think I always felt that as a pretty good advantage, because even as a senior, you tend to become blind to a lot of new ways of solving the same problem. So it will become pretty eye-opening, or at least get some new ideas that someone who has not been looking at the same code will now come and see, and then something strikes you, oh yeah, I can do it in this way also, right? So I think that always felt like some good advantage of pair programming, because if you are working alone, or if you're working with, say, very similar experienced folks, the solutions might always tend to be in a very similar way, whereas it's always good to have new ideas coming in from more
So
fresh eyes.
I want to focus more on what I was clarifying is, you need to fix the culture for the pairing to work. Once you
Yeah,
fix the culture, then obviously there are advantages of pairing beyond coding and product, right? Absolutely, you hit the nail on the head. So I was mentioning that once you ensure that the culture is there where people don't bring the authority or reporting lines onto the table, then actually if you pair with irrespective, like if two people with different backgrounds pair, they bring their own contexts. If people like a new person brings in paired with most of the senior folks, then the ramp up period is really fast and there is no time. So normally when you don't have pair programming, when teams are expanding or new people get introduced, there is certain fixed time called ramp up time where people don't are not expected to commit the code. They kind of do some kind of research or like learning for a few weeks and then starts committing the small pieces of code and then learn. So that's a very painful and slow process. But if you have like once we take care of the culture and proper pairing environment is provided, the idea is like once you pair with all the folks with different contexts, one, initially it will be helpful to ramp up the team. Now as a team you can actually get much more productivity. That's what I was saying, like pairing might not result in individual optimization, but as a team it impacts the overall optimization as a global optimization, right? Because now you are ramping that new people quite fastly with the right context and right background, providing them with the right background, because now they take less number of assumptions, and because you are there to correct them if they make mistakes, there will be less amount of wastage. And to be honest, like whatever I learned in the beginning days is because of seniors whom I have been pairing with. So I've been in projects where I was doing alone. I've been in projects in pairing. I've realized that in projects where I'm alone, if I'm joining the project in middle, it takes relatively longer period of time. If I'm pairing, it takes a relatively shorter amount of time. So yeah, it's an amazing tool. And if people quantify it only amount of code written, probably they're missing the bigger picture.
Yeah. And what would you say if there is a new team and that new team to get that initial rhythm going, to get the confidence in what they are delivering going, initially pair for say a first release or so, and then beyond that go to more traditional approach of working individually and then doing code reviews. Would you say that is a good idea, or it might even depend on a case-to-case basis? Like start with pairing, and then once the team is set and everyone knows how everyone is doing, and then switch over more to a code review form of working.
Yeah. So as I was saying, these are like just tools, right? So it largely depends on the team context and individuals and the product and the solution that they're trying to achieve. And the idea is like first, if the intent is correct, what we are saying is okay. If the intent is providing that continuous delivery, because to enable continuous learning as an organization to release into the market, okay, what options do we have? This is just one way of achieving that, right? And probably this, so we need to start from there and see, okay, with the current state of things, how can we achieve those? And ensuring that once people are familiar with the tools and then taking right decisions of what tool to use to achieve that optimal output, I think that's a good start.
Right. So let's come to the question that is more relevant for current working situation for all of us. So how relevant or how more is pairing more important nowadays when most of us are remote and also in a remote working context? Is pair programming more important, less important, more easier to achieve, or less easier to achieve? So and how's that experience been, especially in a remote context?
So coming to COVID situation, right? This is completely new.
Yeah.
The way in which it has introduced constraints of people. So people ability to work remotely is different than now need to work remotely.
Yeah,
Now you
yeah. I
don't have
think the question can be split into two ways. So in the current situation and also in a generally remote-ready organization which was already in remote, are they doing pair programming? How has it been working? So I think we can talk about both aspects of it if you are aware of some of those cases.
Yes. So one thing need to be acknowledged, right? Like one thing is the situation is completely new and evolving. Like uh, people would feel more productive generally in the beginning now because they're working individually or remotely, not because remote work is more optimal than working in an office or co-located condition. What I feel is just because like people already had the contexts or like, okay, whatever they are doing, it is already known, either individual interactions or like the context of the project. They're just bringing it to the table. Now they have split. And now if people are working, they're just benefiting from whatever they've already established. If there was one cycle, complete cycle, then probably we need to derive new paradigms to ensure that where the gaps exist and reflect and find right tools to address those gaps. So yeah, example, if we still think, okay, providing that continuous feedback mechanism is important, but yet we are constrained by the tools of providing, so we are suboptimal, right? None of these tools are meant for remote collaboration to begin with. So these are added to ensure those gaps are removed in earlier context. So if you're doing like Zoom meetings or like whatever online meetings, it helps to bridge the gap of a physical divide, but not necessarily enable you as if you are working together on the same code base. I think the IDEs are evolving, the languages, the people practices are also evolving. So it need to be seen like, okay, how do you discover where the gaps are with a new paradigm shift? If that becomes the norm, that the world moves and this sustains for some time, I think both the organization will feel comfortable of allowing people to work from home or remote locations. And if that becomes the norm, then we need to provide tools and practices to address those realities, not just blindly apply the current realities.
Cool. Thanks. I think those are mostly the questions that I wanted to ask. I think it's been nice to refresh some of these practices around pair programming and all that and have a chat with you. I think I have fond memories of pair programming, which I don't think I'm actively doing it nowadays, like applying it as and when needed to give some context or get some context and so on. So yeah, it's nice to revisit some of these things. And my fond memories are like learning things around IDE shortcuts, how to do some tricks and tips and tricks with IDs. I don't think I would have never learned it if I was just coding on my own self, unless I was like looking at some code streams, like someone doing live coding on a stream or something.
And pairing or like even agile practices to a certain extent, right, are not a silver bullet. They doesn't solve all the problems. The goal is, first of all, being familiar with it. Second thing is like understanding the intent, like right intent and right purpose, so that when a situation comes that you know, okay, you need to apply these tools to get optimal outcome. That's more important than blindly just doing it. So
yeah, I think you pretty much nailed it with saying it's a tool. It's a tool in your toolkit.
Exactly.
So don't make it like an hammer case where anything you just say, just pair and pair all the time and then get it done, right? So don't do it like that. Use it like a tool. Use it appropriately. You make sure your organization is also evaluating as you use the tool. Use it in the right context, and then see if you're getting with the right intent. Are you getting the right benefits from it, right? So I think that's what I would take away as your main summary.
Yeah, and get familiar with it. So before you decide, you should be familiar.
Before even ruling it out, try it out in the right intent and the right way, and then take a call on it. Maybe it doesn't work out, and maybe it doesn't work out because of certain other things that are hindering. Like even with a lot of the other things, like say continuous delivery or microservices, you still have to do some of the other things to be ready. Or even the normal saying, right? You have to first walk before you can run. So maybe try the walking before you start doing the running also then. Sure. Thanks a lot, Srikanth. That was nice having the chat with you. Thanks again for taking the time.
Thanks, Manoj. It was nice talking to you.